Welcome back, and today I'm wanting to show and demonstrate one of the coolest things I've been able to do with GoDBLedger so far. One of the early thoughts that I had about designing an open source financial system is that you would have control over your own data and your own database. And this would allow you to do business analytics over your own data. When cloud providers have control over your financials, the only analysis you can do is within their framework. So they will only show you their graphs, and they will only show you their statistics and numbers and ratios that they've designed. You don't really get the choice to put in whatever you want. And over the last 5 years, I guess, business analytics and data analysts have sort of taken off. And the biggest of those is Tableau. That's an expensive paid option, but I've managed to hook up Metabase to the GoDBLedger server that I'm running locally. And what I've got in front of me is a quick little dashboard that I've managed to whip up last night. So all I've done, I've graphed 10 years worth of revenue, and below it I've also made a bar graph of revenue less expenses. So this took me an afternoon to make up. I've had no experience with the system at all before, but it lives on the same server as GoDBLedger. It's pointed at the MySQL database, and you essentially just run your own SQL queries over the data and just visualize it however you want. So we can kind of see there's not much going on in this revenue. It's just random, like over the 10 years, plus or minus whatever I put into a random number generator. And over here, we've got an option to refresh. So I don't know if you'd want your financials updating every minute. Maybe that's more reasonable. But we could visualize that our server is just accepting transactions from, say, our cash registers or our point of sales machines. And this dashboard could live on the finance team's wall, and you would see the profit and loss as it's happening. And I guess as it gets more advanced and more systems talk to it, it would show you the whole financials of your whole business, and it'd always be live at all times. So let's see if we can get it to show a bit of live data happening. So I've got this commanding into the server here. And let's take one of these low ones. So in 2016, it's May, and we'll just do the middle of the month. Revenue. And the account I was looking at, I named service 1. And let's just make it 4 million. And then I do want another item. It's going to be cash. Cash again. I'm going to do 4 million as a debit. So this month has 2.8 million, which is in cents. I'm going to add another 4 million to it, and we should spike it up a bit. So I don't want to add any more items. That looks like it's got sent. Successful response. This is about to refresh. So this here should spike up. There we go. So as we send data to it, the server shows up on our dashboard live. And Metabase, given that I've never played with business analytics software before, really, it was relatively easy to use. You pose it a question, which is essentially just an SQL query, and show how you want that to be shown, displayed, like a line graph or bar graph, really. And if I go back here and look at the questions that I've built for it, got a monthly revenue, It's essentially just taking these monthly tables and just putting it into a graph. And it's your job to define how these tables come about. And if I click into show the editor here, you can see it's just a visual way of entering SQL data. So I've just joined all the tables. Said I want to summarize it by the amount. So it's summing together each amount. I think in this case, I was times in all the credits by a negative to give it to a positive number. And the splits were just summarizing it by month. And this comes across as you can see the SQL behind it. It's just a dirty big query, grouping by date and also in ordering by. And that comes across as a table here, and then clicking on visualize, we turn it into a bar graph. And there's not much more to it. If you can imagine that you want many different types of ratios and stuff showing up on your own dashboard, we just look on the internet and we can see what people have done. And here, for example, they have balance sheet items that are being summarized in, like there's a current ratio, and they're looking at their accounts receivable and accounts payable and seeing how good their returns are, their recovery of their debts, I guess. I probably wouldn't look at a data source like that on my dashboards, but considering how easy it was to make up this dashboard, you could have it showing all the different items that you want. And this would all be easily done because you have control over the data. Whereas if you're on a cloud platform, you can only analyze using the tools that they've designed. And naturally, they don't want you accessing these sort of tools, these open source, or even not open source, the business analytics software, because they require you look directly at the data. And the cloud provider, it's not your data, it's their data. But because we've got an open source platform, your data, it's your control over it. You can visualize it how you want and do whatever you want. And pretty easily too.